Good morning and welcome back to Daytona Beach, USA for the qualifying sessions for the second annual virtual 24-hour race. The weather here is fine and everyone is ready and waiting to see who will be starting where on the grid. The prototype session will kick us off with the battle here to get into the top 10 to get the opportunity to compete in that all-important Superpole Shootout to run for pole later on in the day. The cars are on track, so without further ado, let's join the TV footage. With the cars now out on track, let's have a run through to see who is driving in each car. In the number 1 defending champion Campos Motorsport entry, it's Jean Matson who has been given the honour of qualifying this car in this session. In the number 4 Nackley Nissan racing car, it's Arden Hutchinson, the Austrian driver. The Formula Virtual stalwart has been quick all weekend and all test week, and it's looking like he's going to be entrusted to get that lap time for the number 4 car today. Daniel Brunner will be in the number 5 sister car, the lighter of the two entries. While for Peugeot, Puccio Giordano, the number 9 Peugeot driver for this session, with Olen Inman in the number 10. The two Franklin Hondas, Danilo Ferrini will be in the 11 car ahead of Jamie Davis in the number 12. Jamie Davis once again really quick in test week, so it's going to be really good to see how he can pull out all the stops and get that lap time to get them into the top 10 shootout. For Downton, it was a relatively difficult test week, but there's been some early signs that they've made some improvements between test week and race week, with Sergio Alvarez entrusted for the number 13 Downton, while world champion Nathaniel Powers is in the number 14 car. In the number 17 Downton, the first of our prototype AM entries on the list, is Nikolais Christodoulou in the car that he will be sharing in the race with Chase Newfield and Bradley Downton. Meanwhile, the DHL Porsche Team Malachor entries, Enrique Ruiz and Adrien Simon, the two world champion Formula Virtual drivers for Porsche, in the number 21 and 22 respectively, the same numbers that they race in Formula Virtual. The second of our prototype AM drivers, the Medexic Racing Porsche, Stuart Harrison at the wheel, the American on home ground, on home soil here at the Daytona International Speedway. Looks like he's had good pace in that car and a very good driver, previously an Indy Virtual race winner as well as competition in Formula Virtual. Yuki Takamura will be in the number 27 car. The defending GTV Super Cup champion of 2021 will be racing for Cerberus Motorsport, of course, and he will be qualifying the car today. Felix Rivera will be in the sister 28 car, the dark blue Maserati, while James Vazquez has been the superstar of test week and indeed of this running so far of the virtual 24 hours. James Vazquez in the number 37 for this race. The 42 car, the Phoenix Downton privateer entry that originally got pulled out of the running after pre-qualifying in test week, unfortunately. However, with withdrawals in the GT class, they've been given a reprieve, and in this qualifying session it will be Will Taylor who will get them see how far the order that they can get. The number 44 OSM Racing International car will have Thierry Zylander at the wheel. The exciting young talent has been pretty good so far, and he'll be qualifying the car today. Ahmed Chima will be in the number 49 Highwind, the team principal of the Highwind team, entrusting himself with the responsibility of qualifying the car, but with, of course, this being an all-AM entry, it's just going to be a question of keeping their nose clean and making sure that they set a lap time representative of their pace. Victor Osberg, the number 57 Cadillac, had some significant pace in both test sessions, but Victor Osberg was undoubtedly the quickest of the two drivers so far, so he will be qualifying the car as well today. Bayan Zrigovic will be in the number 69 Privateer Westwood Peugeot in prototype AM, while the number 81 will have King Shunxiao, the Chinese driver, racing for Mercedes-AMG Team Kately. Following that will be the final two entries will be the two Mercedes Works cars, Mercedes-AMG Team Kately Arrow entries, with two Arrow drivers from Formula Virtual at the wheel. Xander Brynildsen in the number 82 and Yakumi Takahashi in the number 88. As well as that, we will of course have the driverless AI-powered car of the Quantum Industries Motorsport, the 00. So we're already nearly 5 minutes in to this half-hour session. Let's have a quick look and see who is where. Yuki Takamura has set the fastest time so far in the number 27 Cerberus car, ahead of Enrique Ruiz, 0.2 of a second down the road, with James Vazquez another 0.02 of a second behind in third. In fourth position, we have Jamie Davis, 0.3 off the ultimate pace in his Franklin, but I think he's going to get close to the front as well. While Nathaniel Powers is in fifth. Adrien Simon 6th in the second of the Peugeots. In fact, we have just seen that. I believe that is, yes, that's Stuart Harrison in the Medexic Racing Porsche, the Mathershore Technology Rod entry, up into 5th overall. An impressive start to their day. Daniel Brunner, 8th position. We can see him on the screen here, and he has improved, but Puccio Giordano has improved to go 7th, just ahead of him. The two of them line astern on track. Puccio Giordano, as you can see there, taking full advantage of being in the Australian driver's slipstream. That means Adrien Simon has now slipped to 9th, while Nikolais Christodoulou is in the next of the prototype AM entries in 10th overall. Jean Matson, the defending race winner for Campos Motorsport in the Tauro V8 prototype, is in 11th position, while Qin Chun Zhao in the prototype AM Kately Racing entry in 12th. Danilo Ferrini 13th with Sergio Alvarez 14th. Arden Hutchinson is in 15th in the second of the Nissans, 1.5 seconds off the pace. One thing that is worth noting for this session is that the quality of the driver lineups is second to none. We are seeing these cars at the fastest they've been since test week, and they are the fastest that they will go, even in the Superpole session and throughout the race. This is by far the quickest we'll see these cars go all weekend, and we've got some drivers that are truly fantastic in these lineups. Not a bad driver amongst them. Adrien Simon looks like he's just popped himself up into 3rd position there. We're on board with Olin Inman going down the backstretch of the Daytona International Speedway. One of the unique features of this track, of course, is the fact that as you come through the infield section, there is such a juxtaposition between that infield section and what happens on the banking and on the backstretch and through the tri-oval of the NASCAR portion of the circuit. We see Enrique Ruiz on the screen here on another flying lap, but he's slightly boxed up behind the number 69 Westwood Peugeot, of Bojan Zrigovic there, but not making particularly hard work of that overtake though. On board now with Xander Brynildsen as he comes into the second horseshoe, and we can see that he's got a lot of traffic around him. He's got one of the Dowtons ahead and the Medexic Racing Porsche of Stuart Harrison there as well. Meanwhile, Adrien Simon just 14 thousandths of a second away from Yuki Takamura. Of course, the track will evolve slightly. It was a good track. It's had plenty of rubber laid down across the 2 practice sessions for each prototype and GT so far. But with 20 minutes of this session to go, we expect to see some serious track evolution as this session continues onwards. Victor Osberg there, heading into 13th position, 1.2 seconds off the outright pace set by Yuki Takamura. So Yuki Takamura's early benchmark standing up to a lot of scrutiny here. We've seen some drivers setting faster lap times than they previously managed in that first run, but none of them really getting anywhere close to Yuki Takamura. We're also seeing now some of the drivers pitting after their first runs. We've got Nathaniel Powers in 7th position in the pit lane, along with some of the backmarkers, with Felix Rivera, Xander Brynildsen and Bojan Zrigovic also in the pit lane. Meanwhile, Puccio Giordano and Daniel Brunner both in the same part of the circuit once again, and both of them improving a little bit. Not improving in terms of position, but certainly in terms of time, just over half a second and 0.6 off the pace respectively for Giordano in the Peugeot and Brunner in Nissan. Enrique Ruiz, meanwhile, is right behind the high-wind prototype, the Ligier Alfa Romeo powered vehicle. They've had a difficult test week. And it continued into free practice. Unfortunately, for some reason, they seem to attract a lot of attention from the other runners. They've been hit left, right, and centre throughout test week and indeed in free practice 1. But they got some clean running in free practice 2, and we'll be hopeful to see that they don't have any issues today in qualifying. Ruiz, though, can't actually get past, so Ahmed Chima seems to have a decent lick of pace in that Alfa Romeo powered car. So the signs are pointing to a positive result, hopefully, and indeed, I think he is. Yeah, he's 20 years lasted in the session at the moment, but only 3 seconds off Takamura's benchmark, so that's not bad going at all. Meanwhile, Will Taylor in the Phoenix car on screen, the number 42 car in 24th position, 2.2 seconds off the pace. While as it stands, DriverBot only 1.9 seconds. That driverless AI, remember. There we go. We've just had our first lead change of the session. We've got Sergio Alvarez in the Jaguar heading all the way up to the head of the timesheet, beating out Yuki Takamura's benchmark by 18 thousandths of a second, 135.226. Again, I think that's a lap time that we're going to see beaten today, but it's a good benchmark from Alvarez, and it's the first time in the session we've really seen someone take the fight to Yuki Takamura. Meanwhile, Jean Matson up to 4th position, that Tauro V8 prototype just starting to bed itself in. We're seeing more and more drivers pitting at the moment. We've got Adrian Simon 3rd, James Vazquez 5th, all in the pits. Apologies, Sergio Alvarez, I keep saying he was in the Jaguar. Of course, he is in the number 13 Downton, so that's showing Downton's pace really nicely at the moment. And we've got, of course, Nikolais Christodoulou in 12th position in the prototype AM variant of that car, and Nathaniel Powers in 9th. So 3 really strong performances so far from the Works Downton cars. Danilo Ferrini in 11th position now for Franklin Honda. That becomes 12th quite quickly. Arden Hutchinson up to 9th. Time's changing, of course, all the way through this session, and it's fast and frenetic stuff. It's only a half-hour session. These drivers and teams have all been used to having a much longer session, or in the case of those that competed in pre-qualifying, a much quieter track. We have got 25 cars out on track, so a congested circuit at points, but also one where they know that they have to push as hard as they can at all times. And indeed, Sergio Alvarez sets another fastest lap in his number 13 Downton. 135.210 extends that, almost doubles his gap from 18 thousandths to 34 thousandths of a second. It's truly couldn't be closer. And Nathaniel Powers up to 4th position, 135.366, only a tenth and a half off his teammate, but that's just showing the quality. Oh, and there we go, Jean Matson up to the fastest time of the session, a 135.182. It's also worth considering the fact now that this is only to set the positions on the grid from 11th to 25th in the prototype category. The top 10 will all move forward to Superpole qualifying to see who will start on pole position for the second annual virtual 24 hours. So as it stands, it's Matson, Alvarez, Takahashi, Simon, Powers, Vazquez, Ruiz, Davis, Harrison in the prototype and Porsche, and Arden Hutchinson in 10th, who will all be in the Superpole session. But that's only 4/10 of a second. Giordano about a tenth and a half off in 11th. So at the moment we have 15 cars within a second really. Arden Hutchinson up to the head of the field there, 6 thousandths of a second up on Jean Matson in the Campos. Looks like Enrique Ruiz here is on a pretty good lap at the moment as he heads through the trioval, and indeed he is now fastest by just over a tenth and a half, a 135.012. We've seen the pace from the Porsche good through the test week. Not quite so imperious in the 2 free practice sessions we've seen so far, but Ruiz taking that Porsche to the head of the field. But once again, I still expect this to be a pecking order that does change somewhat throughout the rest of the session. Jamie Davis now on screen. In fact, we're back with Ruiz as he heads through the left-hand dogleg into the second of the 2 hairpins on the infield section. Gets the power down nicely. A little bit of an adjustment on the exit there. That'll cost him a little bit of time as he heads hard braking now into the left-hander onto the trioval. Onto the Speedway 1 and 2, sorry. Jean Matson 3rd overall. In a little bit of traffic there, he's got I think he's got Daniel Brunner ahead, who is now 13th, 8/10 off the pace, and behind is one of the 2 Peugeots. I believe that's that must have been Olin Inman down in 18th position, because now we have on screen Puccio Giordano. Giordano, of course, in 11th at the moment, first of the drivers that will not qualify for. Oh, there we go. Sorry. We've got James Vazquez that moved himself up to 2nd briefly before that became 3rd, with Arden Hutchinson setting another blistering lap time to beat out Ruiz's benchmark by just over a tenth of a second. Adrian Simon moving himself up to 5th. So the benchmark right up at the top's moving all the time, but actually that 10th position there, we've got, of course, Hutchinson moved himself into contention there. So now on the drop zone we have in 10th place Stuart Harrison in the Medexic Racing Porsche, while the time for Giordano to beat is now about 2/10 of a second away from the best he's managed so far. You'd expect to see more from Danilo Ferrini as well, while Daniel Brunner is in a car that is currently also heading the timesheets, so it's entirely possible that we'll see something big from him. Victor Osberg as well has had good pace so far. 15th, possibly a little bit lower than we were expecting him after the pace of that car, the number 57 Cadillac Grey Autosport car in free practice 1 and 2. We get some fantastic camera shots throughout the qualifying sessions here at the virtual 24 hours, with Jean Batson and Jamie Davis both having their onboard cameras mounted right on their seat, just so that we can get the perfect driver's eye view of how they are racing throughout this weekend. Behind Jamie Davis there, I think we saw one of the Downtons managing to get past the high wind prototype of Ahmed Chima. While on board with Enrique Ruiz, kicking up a little bit of dust there, taking absolutely no prisoners in trying to get past that Franklin Honda. I don't know quite which one it was, but Ruiz really pushing hard. We're going to see his... Oh no, we're not. We've cut away just in time for me to be wrong. Yuki Takamura, 7th position overall. Of course, set the early benchmark. Now only 3.5 tenths of a second away from the lead. So looking pretty good for Yuki Takamura as it stands, and he's got a massive slipstream there with the two cars ahead. If the rest of the lap wasn't compromised, we might see something big here from Yuki Takamura. So we've got Enrique Ruiz in the pits there for the number 21 Porsche Team Mathershore entry. Second place, 87 thousandths of a second away, splitting the difference between Arden Hutchinson and James Vasquez in 3rd place. We've got Sergio Alvarez on screen at the moment, only 3 tenths of a second away. 3 tenths of a second generally would get you somewhere towards 1st or 2nd or maybe 3rd in the practice sessions generally so far, but we can see with the quality of the driver lineups that we're seeing for qualifying today here in prototype, there is absolutely nowhere to hide. 3 tenths of a second is the difference almost between being at the top and qualifying for the Superpole session. And there we go. Victor Osberg moved himself from in the drop zone up to 4th position overall, pushing Stuart Harrison out. Osberg, a brilliant lap time to go 4th. Ahmed Chima, 3.4 seconds off the pace here in the Ligier Alfa Romeo prototype. So Chima, a really solid performance, the only true amateur driver out on the track at the moment. So this is a tough assignment for the Irish team principal, but he is acquitting himself absolutely fantastically. He's only 1.2 seconds away from Bayern Zrigovic in the number 69 Westwood Peugeot. So with 12 minutes 40 seconds of the session to go, it's Arden Hutchinson fastest, and at the moment in the pit lane, Enrique Ruiz still out on track trying to find a bit more time, while James Vasquez in the Jaguar P-Type SVR is also in the pits. Victor Osberg still out on track, while we have Adrian Simon, Jean Matson, Sergio Alvarez all pitted, with Yuki Takamura and Nathaniel Powers out on track. 10th and on the bubble, Jamie Davis in the Franklin Honda, with Stuart Harrison in 11th, just outside, half a tenth away from getting into the Superpole session. Puccio Giordano in 12th position, just coming into the pits now to make some changes before the final salvo there for that car. On board with Ruiz, you can actually hear the tyre scrub there as he comes through the International Horseshoe. I think that car, well, those tyres at least are now a little bit past their best, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do with the rest of this lap. Osberg, 1 position better, up to 3rd overall. That's an incredible lap there from Victor Osberg, fighting right in amongst some absolute top names there with Enrique Ruiz and James Vasquez, and Arden Hutchinson at the moment still in the lead of the session. On board with Ruiz as he goes through the first split. He's 2.5 tenths up on the fastest lap time from Arden Hutchinson. Generally, that Porsche loses out a little bit on the fast sections until he gets to until the bus stop, and then also from the bus stop all the way across to the tri-oval and then turn 1. So I don't know whether or not Ruiz will be able to maintain that 2.5 tenths advantage, but we'll soon find out. Xander Brynildsen setting a 7th lap time good enough for 17th best, while Yuki Takamura up to 5th position overall, a 1:35.0, only a tenth and a half away. So at the moment we have the top 7 cars covered by 3 tenths of a second. That's how close it is here, and we've got some big names really outside of that outside of the top 7 and indeed the top 10. So Nathaniel Powers in 9th at the moment, while Puccio Giordano in 13th position, falling down the order without really managing to set a lap time good enough to improve. With just 10 minutes to go, Sergio Alvarez, 8th position at the moment, 1 place ahead of teammate and Nathaniel Powers, one of the greatest drivers of all time, don't forget. He's 1 position ahead. He's just come out the pit lane with 10 minutes to go, and with probably 1, maybe 2 more runs to try and improve his position from 8th position. Ruiz now gets past Daniel Brunner, 4.5 tenths up. So again, he didn't manage to maintain that 2.5 tenths he had previously. Will 4.5 tenths be enough of a margin that he can then push through and try? You can see here visually though that it's Daniel Brunner behind. He gets past him on the power, but then Daniel Brunner keeps coming back at him. It's going to create a fantastically interesting dynamic for all of these different cars as we head into the race with these different advantages and disadvantages when they have to get past not only each other but also the traffic of the GT runners. Jamie Davis still 10th, still on the bubble, still half a tenth of a second ahead of Stuart Harrison, with Danilo Ferrini though less than a tenth behind as well. Davis isn't only under pressure from others, he's also under pressure from his own teammates, so that's how crucial this could be. Ruiz there sets a lap time just under 4 tenths of a second away from the benchmark set by Arden Hutchinson. Here, that scream of the flat 6 engine in the back of the Porsche RS Hybrid there. A fantastic sounding car, one of the loudest on the grid as well in the prototype category. The burble coming out of the exhausts. Jamie Davis coming now through the Speedway, I think that's Speedway 3 and 4. Now going around the outside of the Ligier prototype with Ahmed Chima at the wheel. Luckily, Ahmed Chima hasn't been hit from behind by anybody today, because I think everyone's just a little bit more aware of their surroundings, a little bit more aware of that the amateur driver's pace, which is really good to see. Everybody treating Ahmed Chima with the respect he deserves. Everybody has a right to their bit of the track, and well, Ahmed Chima's getting it today. Sergio Alvarez, 8th position, only 0.04 of a second away from the fastest time of the session as he comes through that first split coming from the infield section onto the banking. So let's see what Alvarez can do as we go towards the rest of the lap. Felix Rivera, on the other hand, 1.5 seconds off the best time through that split. So 2.1 seconds his best so far. It could still be an improvement for the young Cuban driver in the number 28 Maserati, but it's been a bit of a difficult session, particularly when you look at his teammate Yuki Takamura all the way up in 5th position. Enrique Ruiz here, you can see, has actually been put under a little bit of pressure by the Quantum Industries AI-driven car with driver bots at the wheel. That car, I think it's worth really mentioning that during test week it was absolutely rooted to the bottom of the timesheets in the prototype sessions. You know, it's a fledgling technology. It's something that they've been working on it through the GTV Super Cup, collecting data. And oh, sorry, James Vazquez up to the head of the field, the fastest lap time of 1:34.838, a fantastic time from James Vazquez, half a tenth of a second up on Arden Hutchinson. So Vazquez in the Jaguar really putting on the pace here with just over 5 minutes to go. But going back to the Quantum Industries story, they have, of course, been running a GTV Super Cup team with human drivers, pretty much with the sole aim not only of winning that, doing as well as they can and trying to win in that championship, but also collecting the data that's going to prove so valuable and has proven so valuable in terms of the behavior of a real racing driver, so that we can put this car with driverless technology onto the circuit and for it to be safe and for it to be competitive. And I think that they've achieved all of those aims so far. Absolutely brilliant work from the Quantum Industries Motorsport team. Puccio Giordano still 13th, but also the highest placed of those out of the drop zone, in the drop zone, sorry, to be on track at the moment. He's got clear air ahead of him, and he's got James Vazquez behind. Oh, and Enrique Ruiz, a 1:34.564, blows everybody out of the water there briefly. 2 tenths, well, nearly 3 tenths of a second away from the best ahead of everybody else. James Vazquez's time looked really good, but Enrique Ruiz has just found something absolutely monumental there. With only 5 minutes to go, that will surely cement him safely into the Superpole session. James Vazquez in the pits now. And there we go. Puccio Giordano up to 10th position. 0.8 of a second away from that new benchmark from Ruiz, but a 10.5 up on Jamie Davis, who is now in 11th and in the drop zone. Stuart Harrison also on track now, the 12th placed driver at the moment. So with 5 minutes to go as it stands into the Superpole session, Enrique Ruiz in the number 21 Mather Porsche, James Vazquez the number 37 Ingram Jaguar, the number Arden Hutchinson in the number 4 Sapporo Nacli Nissan racing car. And in 4th place, Victor Rosberg in the Cadillac Grey Autosport car, Yuki Takamura in 5th, Adrien Simon 6th, John Matson 7th in the defending champion Taro V8 prototype of Campos Motorsports. 8th will be Sergio Alvarez in the Downton. 9th is Nathaniel Powers, and 10th and on the bubble is Puccio Giordano, a 10.5 into safety for the number 9 Peugeot. Takamura and Bojan Zrugovic, you can see on the screen there, Takamura sweeping around the outside. We know that they're in a slightly different race, but one of the things to bear in mind is that these cars are all nominally to an identical specification. It doesn't actually make a difference whether you're driving a prototype AM car or a prototype pro car. If you're a quick driver, you'll get exactly the same lap type out of the same specification of each car. So, for instance, Sergio Alvarez here, up to 6th place, as I mentioned his name. That's a fantastic effort from Alvarez, just a bit more safety. And Yuki Takamura up to 2nd as well, making things a little bit easier for the Cerberus Motorsport team. So Sergio Alvarez and Nathaniel Powers are in the pro class with their Downton MCL 001 hybrid, as is of course Thierry Zylander and Will Taylor in the privateer entries. They are nominally identical to what you see in the prototype AM class with Nicolás Christodoulou at the moment. The only difference between the designation is that at least one of the drivers in the AM class has to be a certified amateur driver, and that of course is Bradley Downton for the number 17 car. Other than that, they are competing on equal terms, on equal ground, and with an equal right to the racetrack. So particularly if some of those prototype AM teams start with their pro drivers in the car, I'd expect them to be battling completely integrated into the field. And I think we've just seen there, Nathaniel Powers still half a second off, but up to 8th crucially, and 3/10 ahead of Giordano in 10th, and crucially though, 4.5 tenths up on Jamie Davis in 11th place, just making things a little bit more comfortable for Nathaniel Powers. Daniel Brunner up to 9th, and in puts Puccio Giordano out as it stands. Giordano just coming out of the pit lane, needs now with 2.5 minutes to go really to find something major. Stuart Harrison though, a 1:34.931 up to 5th place overall, puts Daniel Brunner under pressure just as soon as he gets himself into the top 10, and I said that Powers looked safe with a margin of 0.3 of a second. That margin has already completely vanished. It's now just over 0.5 of a second between Powers in 9th, Brunner in 10th, and John Matson in the Campos prototype in 11th place. Giordano really falling by the wayside there. That couple of laps spent in the pits, fettling, getting the car ready, putting a new set of tyres on, could well cost the Italian and his Peugeot team from competing in Superpole. On board now with Jean Matson. 47.1 is the fastest time in the first sector. It looks like this will be a warm-up lap for him, 1.5 seconds off the pace, but we'll see what he can do as the rest of the session progresses. 1.5 minutes to go. So on the screen at the moment, we had Felix Rivera and Will Taylor. Oh, there we go. James Vazquez, 2nd place overall, 1/10 of a second away from Enrique Ruiz. That Ruiz's time looked pretty good early on from when he set it, but actually I think everybody else is just starting to reach that point now. Daniel Brunner up to 4th place. He was right on the bubble. He was under pressure, but he is now absolutely jumped up there. He looks okay. But at the moment, so let's have a look. 1 minute to go. Things are changing all the time here. I can't keep up. Jean Matson up to 7th place in the Campos car. So as it stands, 1 minute to go. The top 10: Ruiz, Vazquez, Takamura, Brunner, Hutchinson, Harrison, Matson, Osberg, Alvarez, and Simon. As I have said that, Nathaniel Powers has just fallen out of the top 10. He is currently 11th and needs to get He needs to make up 11 thousandths of a second if he is to knock Adrian Simon out and take part in the Superpole session. It looks like he's just, whoa, oh wow, he is going to have, if he crosses the line, he's going to get one more lap by about half a second at most. But if this lap isn't actually quick, of course, that means his lap will not, this will be his final lap. We've also got Danilo Farini out on track on a fast lap with just 15 seconds of the session remaining. This will definitely be his final time. Nathaniel Powers, let's see what he's got at the moment. He's 9/10 of a second away. I think that that's not only means that he's not going to qualify with this lap. I think that means he's going to be starting this race from 11th. Yes, I think it all just happened in the wrong order there for Nathaniel Powers. The checkered flag came out and he will not get another lap time. We've got the lap timer counting here, but that's just a vagary of the timing system here. Felix Rivera coming now through the bus stop. He's in 19th. I don't think he's going to be a factor, but looking at this, Daniel Brunner sets another time even better than his previous one, 0.2 of a second away from Enrique Ruiz in 4th place. But at the moment, undoubtedly the biggest story so far, Nathaniel Powers in 11th place. Of course, Adrian Simon is actually in the pits at the moment in 10th, so if anyone can find that 0.3 of a second, such as Puccio Giordano, well, Simon won't have an answer, won't have a reply. But as we look now, more and more cars start pulling into the pits. Ahmed Chima there, 25th, 3.7 seconds off the best lap time. So a good effort from Ahmed Chima. But at the moment, it is Enrique Ruiz that will be the fastest driver of this session, ahead of James Vazquez, Yuki Takamura, Daniel Brunner, Arden Hutchinson, Jean Matson, Stuart Harrison, Victor Osberg, Sergio Alvarez, and Adrian Simon, who will be the 10th and final runner in the Superpole session. Nathaniel Powers is out, Puccio Giordano is out, Jamie Davis is out. So we've got some big names falling by the wayside ahead of the Superpole session. But here is how those drivers will all line up on the grid for the 2021 virtual 24 hours. In 11th place will be Nathaniel Powers in number 14, Downton, with Puccio Giordano alongside on row 6 in the number 9 car. Jamie Davis and Danilo Farini will make an old Franklin Honda row 7, while Will Taylor, a 15th position qualifying effort overall, a pretty impressive result for a team that weren't even supposed to be here this weekend. Next to them, the other privateer Downton lineup with Thierry Zylander qualifying 16th position in number 44 OSM car. 17th and 18th will see two prototype AM cars line astern. Nikolai Christodoulou in 17th, ahead of Qin Shun Xiao in the number 81 Kately Racing Mercedes in 18th. 19th is Felix Rivera, while 20th will be Xander Brynildsen. Yukumi Takahashi 21st, while a disappointing qualifying performance from Olan Inman will see the number 10 Peugeot start in 22nd position. 23rd will be the 69 Westwood privateer car, the prototype AM entry, with Bayern Zrigovic at the wheel for qualifying. 24th, DriverBot, the AI-powered car, 24th overall on the grid, beating Ahmed Chima, the only amateur driver to be enlisted for qualifying their car during this race. Ahmed Chima only 3.4 seconds off the ultimate best pace there set by Enrique Ruiz. So a fantastic effort from Chima, really. So there we have it. Positions 11 to 25 on the grid have been secured, while the top 10 will go forward to the Superpole Shootout to see who can start on pole position for the 2021 virtual 24 hours. Next up is GT. While Prototype had that added complication of Superpole, GT is very simple. The fastest driver wins. The Franklin Honda NSXs have been absolutely imperious thus far, with only Dodge really seeming to have any answer for them. The cars are now emerging from the pit lane, so let's see who's going to be the fastest and qualify on GT pole. So here is how the GT runners will line up for qualifying. Spencer James will pilot the number 7 McLaren car, the Monster Energy Downton McLaren Racing entry. Got in by virtue of pre-qualifying, but seemed to have decent pace all the way through the free practice 1 and free practice 2 sessions we've had this weekend, seeming again that not unlike their prototype operation, the Downton run cars have found a little bit of pace between the first and second weeks of the virtual 24 hours. The number 8 car will see Anton Hahn at the wheel, the first of our amateur GT Daytona runners. Felipe Cesar, the number 18 car, another GT Daytona runner, but with Cesar at the wheel, has been very quick, even really topping the timesheets overall as a result of Cesar's outright pace. Felix Perez in the sister Franklin car, the number 19, another GT Le Mans runner, but Cesar and Perez really have been the class of the field. The two Franklin Hondas, the Honda NSXs, undoubtedly the cars to beat all the way through this qualifying session. Maximilian Thunstrom, the number 24 car, another one of the entries that really shouldn't be here. They were eliminated as a result of pre-qualifying. They couldn't quite get it hooked up. Maximilian Thunstrom in the car, just a week removed from winning his first Formula Virtual race, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, couldn't get a lap together and was eliminated. However, they're here now by virtue of one of the Cadillac entries being withdrawn, sadly. So, Maximilian Thunstrom, they've had a reprieve. What can they do? As I say, that car looks like it's been revived. Not only has it been given a reprieve, it is faster than it ever was throughout test week. So let's see what Maximilian Thunstrom can do. Heikki Veskila, the number 38 Ingram Jaguar Racing entry. While Dominic Hansen is in the third of our GT Daytona entries, number 41 Phoenix Motorsport McLaren 720F. Hansen, of course, a driver this year for Phoenix in Formula Virtual, has been towards the back of the grid in that, but has actually shown some decent pace throughout the virtual 24-hour running. The number 43 and 47 Dodges won't be joined this week by the number 33 Dodge, unfortunately removed from the running. However, Luca Romero will pilot the number 43 car, being the quickest driver in that 43 Richard Petty inspired car, the homage to the Plymouth Superbirds of the 70s. Felix Bayer will be in the number 47 car. Fastest driver undoubtedly throughout test week in that 47 car. Will be looking to qualify in just as high a performance today. Dino Palmer, the sole remaining Cadillac driver in this session, the number 58 car. Dino Palmer and Frank Yang will now be joined by the 55 driver of Andrew Wright, with an all-star lineup to maximise their chances of success. Alexander McLaughlin, the first of the two high-wind Ferraris. Alexander McLaughlin, the number 71 GT Le Mans entry, been a pretty strong runner throughout test week and throughout the first throws of this raced weekend. Jamie Gerard, the sole remaining pro class GT Le Mans Mercedes number 80 car, Mercedes AMG Team Cately. Gerard been pretty quick throughout, unfortunately in test week at least, a little bit let down by the pace of his teammates, but with the increased emphasis on the endurance and who can carry their team the furthest into the race, we're expecting Gerard to see Gerard running in a heavy part of this race and should be a good prospect for a decent performance. Last up in the GT Le Mans category is the two Porsches, number 91 and 92 cars today, with Max Meyer and Carlos Zapatero at the wheel respectively. The two Porsches didn't really have the best of times in test week. One of them only getting through by virtue of being last year's class winner, and the other one getting through as a result of pre-qualifying. The number 93 Porsches next up, Didier Arnaud in the Daytona Beach inspired livery, the homage to the venue for the 2021 virtual 24-hour race. Arnaud in the number 93 Lapierre Formule car. Number 94, Rodrigo Sanchez in the Downton Motorsport car. Unlike the two Monster Energy predominantly black cars of the Works team, the Downton Motorsport number 94 car is bedecked in that iconic orange and blue livery we've come to know and love from Downton Motorsport. Jonas Phipps, the penultimate runner in this one, in the number 95 Jaguar Ingram Racing car, while the number 38 car has that silk cut Jaguar livery, an absolutely iconic livery which has been tweaked to be in the colours of Ingram Jaguar Racing. Jonas Phipps in that very beautiful dark green livery, dark green and white, more kind of old school Jaguar Works livery for the number 95 car. Finally, it's the number 99 high-wind Ferrari, Lewis Ellington. He's in GT Daytona by virtue of teaming up with Ray Miyamoto in one of the other two seats in that car. But Lewis Ellington has been an absolute revelation. He's been quick. He has been running right up there with the top GT Le Mans runners, not unlike how Felipe Cesar has. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Lewis Ellington can do in the end, towards the end of this session. So we're 5 minutes in at the moment. We've got 24 minutes, 31 seconds remaining in the qualifying session for the GT classes for the 2021 virtual 24 hours. At the moment, it's a 1:47.216 that leads the classes, with Spencer James at the top. We said that McLaren had an increased amount of pace since the last weekend, last test weekend, seemingly. Spencer James at the moment heading the timesheets, proving that point perfectly. It's Felix Perez in second, just under 0.2 of a second behind, while 199 thousandths off is Maximilian Thunstrom in the sister 24 car of Monster Energy Downton McLaren Racing. So yeah, things have really improved for them. Felipe Cesar is fourth. Oh, there you go, Maximilian Thunstrom up to second, just under 0.2 of a second away from his teammates. So yeah, McLaren in the early running at least looks like they've found something a little bit more for this qualifying session. It's Felipe Cesar in fourth place, best of the GT Daytona runners at the moment in his number 18 Franklin Honda, while Jamie Gerrard, fifth place, already in the pits, having made his first run. So a good run early on from Jamie Gerrard in the Mercedes. Looking there, we've got Felix Perez jumping up to within it, just over 1/10 of a second away from Spencer James. Perez and Thunstrom really exchanging times here in the early running. Sixth place is Jonas Phipps, another GT Daytona runner in that dark green Jaguar. Jonas Phipps half a second off, but up to sixth. Rodrigo Sanchez just enters the pit lane. I'm not entirely sure what's happened with the camera here. Luca Romero's Dodge appears to have a camera that has worked its way loose once again. Rodrigo Sanchez in seventh place overall, again already having made his first run, while Carlos Zapatero eighth and best of the Porsche runners. Alexander McLaughlin is ninth, with Lewis Ellington, his teammate, just pushing himself up to 10th place. So the two high-win Ferraris at the moment, 9th and 10th in class. 9th and 10th in the category, with McLaughlin and Ellington in the separate classes. Luca Romero, 11th place. That dislodged camera doesn't seem to be bothering him too much in terms of pace. He's in 11th, only a second off the best time of Spencer James, while Heikki Bashkila, also in the pits already, having made his first run, getting 12th position in the Ingram Jaguar. 13th is Dominic Hansen, while 14th for Didier Arnaud. So Hansen and Arnaud very close there in the 41 Phoenix McLaren and the number 93 Lapierre Porsche. Anton Hahn also in the mix there, 15th in the number 8 AM Class car for Kately Racing. Felix Bayer, disappointing actually. Felix Bayer, 10 minutes into the session almost, and well, there you go. As I say that, he proves me wrong once more. Up to 10th place in the 10th overall in the category. Felix Bayer only 0.8 of a second off. Dino Palmer is 17th and in the pits as it stands in the Cadillac. So Dino Palmer, you'd be expecting to see a little bit more. That Cadillac actually had pretty decent pace at points during test week. Let's see what they can do. Meanwhile, at the moment, at the tail of the field, it's Max Meyer, 2.7 seconds off. A very disappointing start to the proceedings for Max Meyer in the number 91 Porsche. So I'm expecting to see him move up the field a little bit, but at the moment, Max Meyer going to be starting dead last in the virtual 24 hours. On screen there, you see Alexander McLaughlin and one of the McLarens. I think it might be Spencer James, side by side heading in. So it's a qualifying session, but nobody's going to be taking any prisoners here. Track position is absolutely key, especially as you head into that tight, twisty infield section. You don't want to be held up for too long. However, if you can get that slipstream going through the wide, long banking of the Daytona International Speedway through Speedway 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 after you go through the bus stop, then you might get yourself a little bit of a slipstream. A wonderful view there of Felix Bayer's lap belts and Dino. Yeah, okay. Some of the cameras would appear that they've dislodged themselves ever so slightly as we go on board with Dino Palmer on. It looks like an outlap. You can see in the camera on the right hand side. Dino Palmer's cameras all appear to be in the wrong place here, but we won't worry about that too much at the moment. In looking in the rear view camera, which is working absolutely perfectly, to the right hand side of the screen, you can see a Ferrari there of. Oh, I don't know who that Ferrari was, to be honest. I didn't see their number. Felix Bayer in the pits after their first run. Well, this camera's good. You can see a bit of track, which is always helpful. So it must have been Lewis Ellington, because in front of Alexander McLaughlin, as you can see, is the number 94 Downton McLaren of Rodrigo Sanchez, who is up in 7th place at the moment. Looks like McLaughlin will be heading into the pits, and indeed right behind him is one of the two Works McLarens that will be following him right away. We're back on board with Dino Palmer. Who knows what part of the car we're going to see next, but at the moment we can see Dino Palmer's onboard view as they head round the wide banking. That Cadillac V8 thundering away there with the V8 twin turbo of the Ferrari behind, making just as much noise in a slightly different way. Although, as you can see here, the noisiest car on the grid, undoubtedly. So we've got Jamie Gerrard's burbling V8, the flat, the beautiful sounding engine of that car, being followed by what can only be described as the screaming Porsche Flat 6 of Carlos Zapatero. Max Meyer looks like he's managed to find a little bit more pace, going from 2.7 seconds down to only 1.2, but it only really propels him up to 15th place. The Porsches do not seem to have an awful lot of pace so far in this qualifying session. Spencer James, Jonas Phipps and Alexander McLaughlin, the only cars at the moment to be in the pit lane. They are all preparing, and as I say that, Alexander McLaughlin looks like he's just emerging out of the pit lane here. In fact, on board with the New Zealander now, so we can see his procedures for going out. It looks very calm, cool, calm and collected on the onboard view. Once again, you can see behind that there is really space to breathe on this track. There is only 18 of these GT runners as opposed to 25 of the prototypes, but it always seems that they can all find the same bit of track. It looks like behind we've got one of the two Franklin Hondas. Let's have a look, see which one. I think that's the GT Daytona class car, yet with the yellow identification marks on the side of Felipe Cesar. We've seen a similar pattern here, I think, to what we saw in the prototype classes. Early on, we saw a flurry of lap times, of course, and we saw the order changing a little bit. But in prototype, that continued all the way through in free practice 1, in free practice 2, and indeed in the qualifying session, with them seeming to take the full hour to get up to speed. Meanwhile, the GT runners, they've reached their kind of they've reached a position, they've reached an order, and it seems to be staying there for them. So we haven't really seen many big improvements lately, but as we head into the second half of the session, I'm sure that will change. Maximilian Thunstrom, flame spitting out there of the McLaren 720S run by the Works Downton McLaren Racing Team. Thunstrom very pleased to have a chance at being back at the Daytona International Speedway after the nightmare of test week of just under a month ago. However, Maximilian Thunstrom making by far the most of it here, 0.06 of a second away from teammate Spencer James from the misery, you have to say, of the test week for the Downton team as a whole. They've really upped their game. They've really seen something better here. You can hear in the background of this unusual camera shot the thundering V10 engine of the Dodge Viper, an absolutely incredible sounding car. It looks like he's just gone through the first split because we saw he was slightly up, but this car, despite its massive power and massive sound, I think its torque is its most potent strength. It comes through these long sweeping corners and then just punches on the throttle and gets away without too much hassle. We're approaching the halfway mark of this session. Once we get to 15 minutes, I'll give us a rundown of the order as it stands. The two AMG GT3, two AMG GT cars coming out of the pit lane there. The number 8 car, the AM class car ahead of the number 80. Perhaps Anton Hahn will be giving Jamie Gerrard in 5th place a bit of a tow to try and improve Gerrard's time from a 1:47.7 to get that half a second he needs to advance all the way to the head of the field. Looking back here, Anton Hahn very close behind though is Jamie Gerrard. Do you think that they're going to have to pull a little bit more of a gap than that, at least in the infield section, if it's to be an advantage for Gerrard overall? So here we go, with 15 minutes of the 30-minute session remaining for the GT runners here at the Daytona International Speedway. The qualifying order is currently as follows. We have Spencer James on pole position as it stands provisionally for the Downton McLaren Racing Team, the Monster Energy back team with this wonderful black livery. Maximilian Thunstrom, his teammate, only half a second off at the moment, while Felix Perez is in third in the first of the two Franklin Hondas. Felipe Cesar also in the pits, the second of those Hondas, while Jamie Gerrard 5th at the moment and has now got back past his teammate to take clear air. Jonas Phipps about to start a lap. Another strong performance from a GTD runner, as well as Rodrigo Sanchez. So 6th and 7th, both 4th, 6th and 7th, all in fact, and 8th even. Lewis Ellington is in 8th for Highwind. Carlos Zapatero 9th in his Porsche, while Alexander McLaughlin completes the top 10 in the second of the 2 Ferraris. Felix Bayer is 11th, so again another disappointing performance, it would appear, for Felix Bayer, 11th, with Luca Romero, his teammate, just over 2 tenths behind in 12th place. Heikki Veskila a second off the pace compared with Phipps, half a second off. As I say that, Felix Bayer up to 9th place, so a little bit of an improvement there for the Dutch driver in the Dodge. Heikki Veskila, though, is 13th, and that's half a second away from Jonas Phipps in the GTD car, of the sister car for that team. Dominic Hansen, 1.2 seconds off in 14th, while Max Mayo in 16th now, because Didier Arnaud has just jumped up from the lower reaches of the order to 12th position overall, demoting Max Mayer down to 16th. Anton Hahn is 17th, and actually falling behind already quite rapidly from Jamie Gerrard, while Dino Palmer currently rounds out the grid in 18th. You can see on the onboard here, once again, you look into the rear view camera on the right hand side. They're not only a fantastic resource for everybody, that's for all the drivers, but it's also a brilliant resource for everyone watching the onboards to see what's going on behind. He has currently got Didier Arnaud boxed up behind, trying to find a way past any way that he can. Meanwhile, Lewis Ellington has moved up to 5th position. That's a great lap time there from Lewis Ellington in the Highwind Ferrari. 4 tenths of a second away from the ultimate pace from Spencer James, but Ellington doing a great job there in the Ferrari. The sister car of Alexander McLaughlin looks like he's just come out the pit. He's currently 3 seconds off in that first split, so he'll be trying to improve a little bit. Another unique view of the Cadillac here, the ATS VR of Dino Palmer. You'll be able to see the pedal box there. Still has the number 93 car behind, unfortunately, for Didier Arnaud, but for Dino Palmer, it's not really their problem. So we've got 2 cars in the pits at the moment, Rodrigo Sanchez and Felix Bayer. So they'll be looking to make maybe 2 more runs at most through here, as Dino Palmer, emerging from the pit lane, starts his flying lap. So here we go. McLaughlin started his first flyer there. That was a bit of a warm-up lap. Oh, and a little bit of a lock-up there you saw from Alexander McLaughlin on that onboard view. Fantastic camera shots making up for the slightly dodgy ones coming out of the Cadillac and the Dodge there. McLaughlin pushing hard, locking up, really under pressure, you can tell, in 11th place with his teammate in 5th at the moment. Meanwhile, Felix Perez, 2 tenths of a second at the head of the field, a 1:47.006, taking the fastest lap of the session and on provisional pole for the 2021 virtual 24-hour race. On board now with Felix Bayer, you can see that it's a bit of a lazy driving style for Bayer. Couple of turns in, couple of turns to keep the thing in the right direction, but that's just the way that the Dodge Viper likes to be driven, pushing it a little bit, kind of coaxing it around the corners, rather than pushing it. Bit of a train forming here. Felix Bayer, we have Alexander McLaughlin, and then we have Heikki Veskila in the Jaguar, all line astern. 3 of the best sounding cars on the grid. So this is an absolute spectacle for all the fans that have turned up. You can see them lining the fences on the outside there before the banking as we go through Speedway turns 3 and 4, heading on to that final front stretch before getting to the tri-oval and finding out how good your lap time was. Spencer James now in the pits, as well as Jamie Gerrard. Gerrard hasn't really improved lately, neither has Spencer James, but he didn't need to until now. So let's see what Spencer James can do in his final couple of runs. You can see the outright straight line speed of that Jaguar is something else. They're absolutely flying there. Alexander McLaughlin, though, you'll be able to see it if we stay on board, which we haven't done, although you might see him just in the rear view mirror. These three cars absolutely together. That Ferrari much better on the infield section and actually has enough of an advantage as it doesn't really need to worry about the fact that the cars get back. The cars in front will run away on the banking because he can just make it all up again. Meanwhile, we've had two pretty big moves there. Lewis Ellington up to 4th position, up ahead of Felipe Cesar, which puts him in provisional pole for GT Daytona. Although as soon as I say that, Felipe Cesar also back to 4th position. Meanwhile, Max Meyer up to 6th position overall. It's been a very disappointing performance from Max Meyer up to that point, but he's just found something with about half a second gained on his previous best to put him up to 6th position in the session. Dominic Hansen there up to 13th place. Another good performance from Hansen in the number 41 Phoenix McLaren, the privateer car. That screaming Porsche flat 6 behind Dino Palmer. It must be somewhat distracting to hear that coming behind you. You know what's there and you know that you've got absolutely nothing you can do about it. What it does seem to be doing, though, is that Didier Arnaud cannot get a clean lap because he's been stuck behind, and that straight line speed in that Cadillac is absolutely phenomenal. Felipe Cesar about half a second off going through the first split, but that Honda's been strong everywhere, so he might make up a little bit, or at least enough to try and improve on his lap time. Felix Bayer, meanwhile, it's very comparable with his best time. This might be just a slight improvement for him. It was a slight improvement, but he didn't make up a place, and indeed, he actually lost a place. Heikki Veskila up to 6th place overall. A great performance there, a great lap from Veskila, following Felix Bayer, taking full advantage of that slipstream without necessarily being held up in the infield section. I don't think the same can be said for the Porsche that is sitting behind of Zapatero, behind Anton Hahn at the moment. Meanwhile, Max Meyer, another strong lap, up to 6th place, back ahead of Heikki Veskila. So we've got Bayer and Veskila in the infield section there, and now being held up a little bit by what would appear to be a Honda on an outlap. But well, it's just the nature of the beast. This is quite a long circuit, but everyone naturally finds himself together through the nature of clumping. So we'll have to see what happens there. Heikki Veskila, though, all the way around the outside of that Honda. So I think the Honda will just about have the power to probably get back ahead. Of course, we're not racing here, it is only a practice session, but ultimately they all need their track position, they all need that bit of place, that clear air, that means that they can set the best lap time possible for their car and their skill levels. So it's similar to the situation we saw with Ahmed Chima in the prototype session. Everyone's entitled to their bit of track, everyone's entitled to do what they can. So ultimately, they've all got to work together and they've all got to have a little bit of common sense that just don't worry about the other cars on the track. Find your clear air and set the lap time that you think that you're capable of. Dino Palmer improves, but doesn't actually improve position, just on time, but now within 2 seconds of Felix Perez at the head of the timesheet. So, a pretty good improvement from Dino Palmer, a little bit more, and there might be some positions in that as well. Meanwhile, Felix Perez looking to start what will probably be his final salvo of this qualifying session, already on pole provisionally, but really in with a chance of doing something great. Oh, in front of Perez there was the number 41 McLaren of Dominic Hansen coming out of the pit lane. Possibly bolts this Mexican driver a little bit, but again, that's just where the pit exit comes out. They can't really do anything about that, so Perez just a little bit unlucky there. As long as he clears him, I don't think it will cause too much tyre wear, too many issues for that. These tyres generally good enough for 3 or 4 really good flying laps before they even can start to fall off, and even then they can keep having plenty of speed in the tyre. So just 5 minutes to go. Oh, as Felix Bayer turns in quite tight there, scrubs the front tyres absolutely monumentally, and now you can see under here Luca Romero, you can see his tyres on the ground there. The suspension travel even on the banking is absolutely phenomenal. So under 5 minutes to go, let's have a run through and see where everybody is standing. Felix Perez currently fastest, a 1:47.006 second lap. puts him 0.2 of a second ahead of Spencer James in second for Downton McLaren Racing. Third is teammate Maximilian Thunstrom, while Lewis Ellington is in fourth position in the Highwind Ferrari. Felipe Cesar second in the GT Daytona class behind Ellington in fifth overall, while Max Meyer just emerges from the pit lane once more to see if he can improve on sixth place. Heikki Vaskila seventh for Ingram Jaguar Racing, while Carlos Zapatero in the second of the Porsches has just moved up to eighth position. Jamie Gerrard is ninth for Mercedes-AMG Team Caterham. It was 7.5 tenths off the fastest lap time, but just proving how close this field is, that all 13 of the top runners are within 1 second. Jonas Phipps is 10th in the amateur GT Daytona class, Ingram Jaguar, while Rodrigo Sanchez, Felix Bayer, Alexander McLaughlin, Anton Hahn, Didier Arnaud, Luca Romero, Dominic Hansen, Didier Arnaud, Luca Romero, Anton Hahn, and Dino Palmer round out the field. The entire GT field currently separated by only 1.7 seconds. I feel like that's an error I'm going to make quite commonly in this race with over the course of the race weekend with Dominic Hansen, Anton Hahn, two of the less similar names on the timing pylon, but with some of the names we've had some limitations with the timing. That means that they're all going to look the same, so I apologise in advance for any more errors that I make throughout the race weekend. Ellington and Phipps, the only two cars in the pits at the moment, and with under 3 minutes to go, you have to say that means that their runs will pretty much be done for the day. Jonas Phipps proving me wrong immediately as we go on board with him, coming out of the pit lane, warming the tyres a little bit there. Who have we got behind him? We've got one of the McLarens. I think that is, I believe, looking at the number, that is Maximilian Thunstrom, the third place car at the moment. So Phipps coming out of the pit lane a little bit awkwardly, but again, that metallic green car, though, does look absolutely stunning under the sunshine here at Daytona. Carlos Zapatero pulls into the pits from 8th position. That's probably as good as it's going to get for the Spaniard now. Carlos Zapatero staying there. And Felix Perez, crucially, 0.2 up on everybody at the moment in the pecking order, on pole position provisionally for GT Le Mans and overall in the GT category. Pulls into the pits with 2 minutes to go. His day is done. He has pulled in and said to everybody else, well, that's what I can do. Beat that. So now let's see whether anybody can. On board now with the 13th place man, Alexander McLaughlin in the number 71 Highwind Ferrari. Teammate Ellington is all the way up in 4th place. So possibly a little bit disappointed with his performance so far, but Lewis Ellington's a very strong teammate to have, and 13th overall is not a disastrous place to start this GT race. Meanwhile, we've got Felipe Cesar now also in the pits, so we've got 3 of the top 5 in the pit lane, but it's just the 2 McLarens that are left to try and improve on improve on their lap times, and the car behind Jonas Phipps will make one more attempt at getting the pole position here at the Daytona International Speedway for the virtual 24-hour race. So Jonas Phipps starts his final run now with one of the McLarens right behind him. In fact, Spencer James has pulled into the pits now, so that's not going to be an improvement for Spencer James. He is now second guaranteed pretty much at best. And with Maximilian Thunstrom behind Jonas Phipps, I don't think we're going to see an awful lot of improvement from him. So in terms of the top 5, I think they're pretty set. Max Meyer is in 6th with Vaskila 7th. Carlos Zapatero in 8th position. Jamie Gerrard is 9th with Phipps we are on board with in 10th place. Rodrigo Sanchez 11th, Felix Bayer 12th, Alexander McLaughlin is 13th, Dominic Hansen 14th, Didier Arnaud 15th, Luca Romero 16th, Anton Hahn 17th, and Dino Palmer rounding out the field and in the pits at the moment in the 18th position. Well, with just 15 seconds to go, we're seeing more and more cars pull into the pits. Meyer pulls in as well, so I don't think any of the top 6 are going to improve. Heikki Vaskila, I don't know where he is on the track, but he's still out there somewhere. So as the clock runs down to 0, we are now complete for the 2021 virtual 24-hour qualifying session with only the final laps remaining. We have Perez, James, Ellington, Cesar, Meyer, Zapatero, Bayer, Romano and Palmer all in the pits at the moment, and Maximilian Thunstrom boxed up behind the 10th position car of Jonas Phipps at the moment. One of the few cars on a flight at the moment is Didier Arnaud, and indeed he has got himself up to 7th position overall and 3rd in the GT Daytona class. A brilliant final salvo there from Didier Arnaud, moving himself up from the relative reaches of the back of the grid up to 7th position in the GT category. Fantastic performance there from Didier Arnaud. So after the GT qualifying session, the field will start the virtual 24-hour race for 2021 as follows. On pole in GT Le Mans will be Felix Perez, joined by Spencer James on the first row of the GT field. Maximilian Thunstrom will be 3rd place in the number 24 McLaren. A fantastic turnaround in a race where he wasn't even supposed to be here after pre-qualifying in test week. Lewis Ellington, the number 99 car, will be the first of the GT Daytona runners in 4th overall, while Felipe Cesar will be 1 position back in the number 18 Franklin Honda. Max Meyer will be 6th overall, 4th in the GT Le Mans category for Porsche, while Didier Arnaud will be alongside him overall on row 16 with the number 93 car, 3rd in GT Daytona. Heikki Bashkila will follow alongside Carlos Zapatero. Jamie Gerrard 35th overall in the number 80 car, while Jonas Phipps and Rodrigo Sanchez are next up, both GT Daytona runners. The number 47 Dodge of Felix Baer will be 38th. Alexander McLaughlin 39th, Dominic Hansen 40th, Luca Romero in the 43 car 41st, Anton Hahn in the penultimate position on the starting grid in the number 8 GT Daytona Kately Racing Mercedes, while rounding out the field for the 2021 virtual 24-hour race will be Dino Palmer in the number 58 Cadillac Grey Autosport car. So there we have it, we're getting closer than ever to the start of the virtual 24-hour race for 2021. The GT field, it's now set. The prototypes only have a top 10 shootout for Superpole to determine who will start the 2021 race from the head of the field. Beyond that, there is now only a 20-minute warm-up session where all the cars will go out to perform final systems checks before they will face the grueling prospect of a 24-hour race around the Daytona International Speedway, the 2nd annual running of the virtual 24-hour race.